storm warnings are in effect in just a few places. Take a look now at our forecast a little farther to the south, because some of this wintry weather should sweep across the south. It's the very same storm, and we have winter storm watches in effect for parts of northern Alabama, that far to the south, and certainly across parts of Tennessee. We're going to see the winter weather. Here's the storm system that I'm yammering about. Look how it moves across the south. You can see the snow flurries even into the deep south. Here you can see the snowfall out of the Great Lakes into parts of the Northeast. More weather later. Back to the news desk.
Flip, thank you
so much. And we're going to check in with the opening bell. Just seconds away from the opening bell on Wall Street. Friday was a downer day, you could say. The Dow was down 240 points, the NASDAQ down 75 points. Look, though, for the market to rally today. Investors looking for a possible break from the Fed later this week on interest rates. We'll be tracking it. You'll see it live from time to time here on Morning News. Quick break now.
All right, on a Monday morning, welcome back once again. It is December 18th. How many times have we talked about that date over the past
Electoral
five and a half, almost 6 weeks now? Welcome back and good morning again. I'm Bill Hemmer.
And I'm Daryn Kagan. We will have a live report from the New York Stock Exchange in about
15 minutes.
Okay, I've missed you being by my side to say. I had to figure it out for myself.
Carry on.
Meanwhile, we'll go ahead and we will check our top stories. President elect George W. Bush is in Washington, D.C. for the first time since the election. Mr. Bush is meeting with congressional leaders from both parties, and he says he looks forward to making the case for his tax cut plan. Earlier this morning, Mr. Bush met with Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan. And the other big political story today is taking place in state capitals around the country today. Members of the Electoral College are meeting to cast their votes for president. And if all the electors vote as expected, George W. Bush will get 271 votes to Al Gore's 267. And if you've been following America's civic lesson, you know it takes 270 for George W. Bush to become the president.
And most of us have learned more about the Electoral College this year than we ever did back in the 8th grade civics class. After weeks of legal wrangling over those butterfly ballots and hanging chad, we now come down to the process that will officially choose the nation's next president. Live reports throughout the morning and the day today. Three of our reporters, though, standing by now. CNN's Frank Buckley, live in Concord, New Hampshire, Brian Cabell in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Jeff Locke live in Columbus, Ohio. When we begin this morning with Frank Buckley inside the New Hampshire State House this morning for us. Frank, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. We are in the Executive Council chamber, and at 11 a.m. Eastern, the people who will be seated in the four chairs here will be casting their votes. They all tell us that these four electors tell us that they will be, in fact, following through on their pledge to vote for George W. Bush. Last night we caught up with them and we had a chance to speak with all four of them as they toasted on the night before the actual vote, and they also had a chance to get together and talk and have dinner, and they told us that all of them have received phone calls, faxes, and letters from both Republicans who have just checked in with them to make sure that they are in fact planning to vote for George W. Bush, and from Democrats who have urged them to actually switch their votes. But none of them say they have been influenced by those who've urged them to defect.
I've gotten a ton of FedEx letters, a lot of them by just first-class mail indicating the same thing. Please vote for Vice President Gore. He won the popular vote. My position on that is the popular vote does count. It's the popular vote of each state. The popular vote of New Hampshire was with Governor Bush and now President-elect Bush. And I'm going to follow the popular vote of New Hampshire.
The Electoral College, I think, had a lot of wisdom. In fact, I just happen to have that little map, if you haven't seen it, that I think is one of the best illustrations of the fundamental strength of the Electoral College, that the little states like New Hampshire aren't run over by the huge population centers, and the little towns and villages are still important.
And that elector echoing the sentiment of the others who all say that they continue to believe in the Electoral College. They say small states like New Hampshire would be damaged. Presidential candidates wouldn't even come to visit, in their view, if the Electoral College was done away with. Now we will move along to another state in which we will be watching what happens today live, and that is Arkansas, where our Brian Cabell is. Brian?
Frank, we're here in the old Supreme Court chambers in the Capitol here in Little Rock. In about 90 minutes, we'll have our ceremony here as well. The Secretary of State will preside over it. 6 electors, one of them with us right now, Bud Cummins, an attorney here, in fact, an attorney for Bush Cheney in Arkansas. Tell me this, you weren't even certain that you were an elector initially, were you?
Senator Tim Hutchinson asked me to be an elector. He was Governor Bush's point man, President-elect Bush's point man back a few months ago. And frankly, we all got so busy between that time and the election that it had escaped me that I was an elector. And I was driving around the deer woods in the days following the election, listening to the radio about all the hoopla that was going on and the impact of who were the electors and what would they do. And I was driving around saying, oh, I wonder who the heck our electors are. And then my wife started getting deluged with phone calls from the national media, and finally I returned one of those phone calls and figured out that I was on the list of electors. So it's a great honor. It's a more conspicuous honor this year. I'm not sure I understood how important it would be at the time Senator Hutchinson asked me to do it.
Real quickly, some people are saying the Electoral College is outdated. What's your view?
Well, for a state like Arkansas, 2.5 million people, if there was a pure popular vote, we would never see a presidential candidate. We'd never see a presidential ad. The economics of campaigns would never justify the investment in a state like Arkansas, so we'd be left out. And I think if the people in states like Arkansas, in the flyover states, as they call them, want to be involved in presidential politics, the Electoral College is a good thing. If we had a pure popular vote, they'd have been recounting every precinct in the country for the last month and a half, and I don't think that would have been a good thing either.
Bud Cummins, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Once again, in about 75 minutes, we will have the 6 electors saying they will, in fact, vote for George W. Bush. Now let's head north to Columbus, Ohio, where Jeff Flock is standing by.
That's right, Brian. We are looking for those faithless electors this morning, too. I come to you live from the Senate chambers here at the Ohio State House. We have a live picture. We will have a 6-camera remote broadcast of the vote here at noon Eastern time here in Ohio from this chamber. The electors will be sitting in the seats that you see there that are typically occupied by the Ohio State Senators, and the chairman will be up at the front, and they will presumably, as we said, cast their votes for George W. Bush. A very cold day here in Ohio. Perhaps we can take a look outside as the flags furl here at the Capitol. It is wind chill in the negative degree department this morning, and that's why a lot of the electors were brought in overnight and were here last night so that they were in place. Don Simmons is one of them. He is the chairman of the Medina County Republican Party. I'm looking desperately this morning for somebody who is wavering in some way, and that's not you, is it, Don?
No, that's not me. I'm sorry. I hate to disappoint you, but it's not me.
Well, we're only kidding. Obviously, we don't want to challenge your vote here, but we just want to be on top of it. Anyone does. We understand there's one of the electors this morning who is ill and won't be able to participate, but there's a mechanism by which she will be replaced. So you expect this to go smoothly?
Yeah, I really do. I'd be very surprised if it didn't go very smoothly in Ohio.
I want us to show all of the family that you brought with you. This is an important day to you. You thought when you were named that this would be no big deal, but this has become a piece of history.
Yeah, this is something that for years has kind of been done in a broom closet, and the media's reported on page 37, but I think this year it's been a little different. And so we wanted to bring some of our family with us, and I have a couple of grandkids and my wife with me today.
What message do you want to send here today? Obviously a very, very close election. It was close in Ohio, although a clear victory for George W. Bush. What message do you want to send today with your vote in the Electoral College?
Well, I think that all of us in Ohio want to send the message that we were elected to represent George W. Bush, and that's what we will do. And should let everybody know that the election is not one election, but it's 51 different elections, and each one of us represents our own state, and that's what the Electoral College is all about. And I think the day started out 271 to 267. We certainly expect it better end that way, and for the sake of my grandkids and yours as well, and for the integrity of the Electoral College, it's important that that happens that way, I believe.
I've got one last question for you. As we go outside and take a look at one of the 6 presidents who called Ohio their home, why is this the home to more presidents than any other state? Do you have an answer for me on that as we look at William McKinley?
You know, I don't know why it is, but going back, we haven't had a president for quite a while, but we have had
Warren Harding, I think, was the last.
Yes, that's right, and that goes back quite a ways, but it's always been a very major part of the country.
Don Simmons, thank you. Folks, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Live here in the Senate chamber here in Ohio. We're in about, by my watch,
looks like about 2 hours and 20 minutes, Daryn. They will get underway with this all-important process. Back to you.
A bit of history in the making. Jeff Flock, thank you very much. Coming to us from Ohio. You probably still have more questions about the history lesson for today, and that is on the Electoral College. We'll be talking with historian Carol Berkins just ahead to explain to us how this all works. Stay with us. Well, Christine Romans was predicting that the market could open up strong and big, and it looks like it's doing just that. Let's get the latest numbers from Christine at the New York Stock Exchange. Christine.
Hi there, Daryn. You're right. Triple-digit gains. Dow up 113 points, 10,549. They are optimistic that they're going to like what the Fed does tomorrow, and so they're rallying it up today. Ahead of that, you've got JP Morgan, a big gainer, up 3. IBM is up 1, and Time Warner, the parent of this network, indicated actually down a couple of points. AOL, America Online, its merger partner, also indicated lower. The news there, Time Warner cutting its 2000 growth view to 11% from 12 to 13%. That's EBITDA, that's an earnings reading. So watching both of those, waiting for them to open. The Dow, though, doing very well. A bit of optimism here overall. Taking a look at the NASDAQ, it is up as well today. For a better look at that, we bring in Charles Molyneux at the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. Hi, Charles.
Hi, Christine. Yeah, we got brisk business in the NASDAQ, up by 55 points, back above 2,700 to 2,710. The buying is broad. We got computers and telecoms, industrials, finance, biotechs. All sectors on the NASDAQ are up at the moment, and Microsoft, however, is not. It's down by 31 cents, although it looks like the incoming George W. Bush administration is going to go easier on Microsoft. Today's Washington Times reports that Bush advisors say Bush Justice Department would drop the antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft, which the Clinton Justice Department has been pursuing if Microsoft wins on appeal. Of course, Microsoft was found guilty of violating antitrust laws and ordered broken up. It's appealing. E-toys, though, look at this. This is a Christmas season disaster. The company says it's been seeing disappointing sales so far this Christmas season. It's now projecting sales less than half its original forecast of $240 million. It is down by 71%. While the NASDAQ continues to gain. Christine, we're up by 53 points right now at 2708 on busy volume, 160 million shares.
Okay, thank you, Charles. And over here, we have a rally of 125 points. Utilities and transports are both firm as well. That's the latest from Wall Street. CNN Morning News continues after the break.
Stock Market Update is brought to you by MyDiscountBroker.com. Your investments, your way. For more on the markets, log on to cnnfn.com/market update.
Looking at a live picture from Nashville, Tennessee, state capitol grounds, state legislature there. We expect the electors to convene and cast their ballots within about 12 minutes time. Expected at 10 a.m. Eastern time there in Nashville, Tennessee. Still waiting for a picture up from Indianapolis, Indiana. The Hoosier State with 12 electoral votes. They will cast their ballots in the upcoming hour as well. We'll have coverage from both shortly here on CNN's Morning News. But once again, it should be pointed out in the past few weeks, though, America has learned a whole lot more about that Electoral College than is taught in the average civics and government class. It's been a very interesting education. This morning with us, Professor Carol Berkin, a professor, historian, and history professor at New York University, to explain the origins and the purpose of that Electoral College. Professor Berkin, good morning.
Good morning.
Once again, I think it's important to emphasize just how unusual it is that these electors get any amount of attention at any election period, but certainly this year, I guess for the first time in 134 years, indeed, this is the centerpiece. Does that strike you as unusual at all?
That's absolutely true. And I want to say, again, this is such a wonderful time for historians. Kids all over America are learning about something that we've tried to teach them for years and they weren't interested in.
You know what?
So this
because
is wonderful.
It's relevant, is it not, Professor?
Absolutely. My son's school ran an Electoral College vote the day before the election. It was unheard of. So we're really on top of things here.
Professor Berkin, how does one become an elector in the other than being pretty good party folks, being Republican or Democrat? How do you become an elector?
Well, originally, you know, there were no political parties, and you became an elector by being a man of prominence in your state and by being chosen by the state legislature. Once political parties came into play, you become an elector largely because you've done yeoman duty for your own party in your state. And this is an honorific, this is a reward for people who have served their party well.
All right, let's get technical for a second here. Back on the 27th of November, a certificate of ascertainments from Florida, again as we look at the live picture from Nashville, was sent up from Tallahassee with the governor's signature to the National Archives in Washington.
Right.
Why is it now that Florida has to go ahead and vote again on the 18th, knowing that there's already a certificate in Washington?
Well, that's a very good question. I'm not sure I know the answer. The certificates go up to guarantee, in fact, that a slate has been chosen. I think this country is fairly committed to the idea of casting votes, and so I guess this gives the electors a chance to cast their vote. But I have to say, maybe we should streamline this. This is an excellent question.
Listen, we're going to talk throughout the morning, but quickly, do you anticipate anybody ducking their party loyalty today? Certainly there's no criminal action that they can taken, but you might want to run and hide, I would say, if you do.
The person who said they'd need to be in the witness protection program probably had their finger right on the button. No, I don't think anyone will change their vote.
We'll talk to you next hour, okay?
Thanks.
Carol Birkin, live in New York with us. Back to Daryn now across the room. Daryn?
Bill, thank you very much. In Washington, D.C., an event that I bet a lot of people would like to be a fly on the wall for this one. Hillary Rodham Clinton, the current First Lady, will be hosting tea for the next First Lady, Laura Bush. We'll have a live report just ahead here on Morning News. Right now, a quick break.
Bringing you the world for 20 years. This is CNN.
At CNN, for about the first 15 years, I was very schizo. I did serious stuff, I did funny stuff. And then eventually, I think it was after like about 3 years at the UN during the Gulf War that I just went totally off the edge and wanted to go back to features.
How much is that doggy in the window?
Mainly, we look around. It's kind of looking at the world with a certain askew sort of view of things. I love stories where you kind of roll your eyes when you hear the topic.
Everywhere.
You know, things about our, culture or products that you just roll your eyes when you hear about them.
It's a popcorn fork.
My favorite stories are the more whimsical stories about everyday objects. I did a piece on the life of a traffic cone. They lay down their lives for us, that kind of thing. We did a piece on flying debris. And we just followed debris flying around Manhattan through the skyscrapers and put some music to it. It was really cool. I think other reporters sort of measure their careers in moments when they meet a prime minister or, go to a war zone. I measure mine in moments, for instance, where a hippopotamus almost took off my arm. She seems to like weird things sort of happen to me.
It looks pretty ugly. Who needs Q-tips when you've got Chippy? Ginny Mo's CNN, New York.
CNN 20 is brought to you by Tylenol. Take comfort in our strength.
As the Electoral College meets today, the Bush-Cheney transition team continues to play beat the clock. Still a lot of work to do before January 20th. Let's go to their temporary transition headquarters, and that's where we find Eileen O'Connor. Eileen, what are they still doing in McLean, Virginia? Why haven't they moved over to Washington, D.C.?
Well, this is a very convenient location, for Vice President-elect Richard Cheney. It's only about a mile from his home, although short commute, but today he had a little bit of longer commute. Today he went to the Madison Hotel, and he was there early this morning. Not sure if he was in on that meeting with Alan Greenspan and President-elect Bush, but he has been working over there all morning while President-elect Bush has been up on Capitol Hill. And they will, when President-elect Bush comes back to the hotel, they're planning on another 4 or 5 hours of meetings at least at the hotel, and aides are not not saying if whether or not they will be meeting with potential cabinet and other presidential appointment picks. And that's pretty likely that they probably will be meeting with a few people they're considering. Daryn?
Eileen, different topic. What can you tell us about this event that's supposed to take place later at the White House, this tea being hosted by Hillary Rodham Clinton? And guess who's coming to tea? Laura Bush, the next First Lady.
The future First Lady, Laura Bush, is going to be coming to tea at the White House. And this is one of those things where it happens in every presidential transition, a get-acquainted tea. In this particular situation, they'll probably start talking about the kinds of things that the future First Lady is going to have to deal with. I mean, this is a 200-year-old home, and it's also the most visited home in the world. And so therefore, there's a lot to do with keeping it up and also running it, and she'll have to know all about it. Daryn?
A full-time job unto itself. But wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall for that
yes,
tea?
Exactly.
I would love an invitation to that one. Eileen O'Connor in McLean, Virginia. Thank you very much.
About 3 minutes before the hour now. More to come next hour. We're watching Tennessee and Indiana.
Yep.
Kind of feel like we did this a month and a half ago, don't you?
Groundhog Day, election 2000 continues.
More after this. Stay with us.
It is 10 a.m. on the East Coast, 7 a.m. on the West Coast. Today is Monday, December 18th, the final entry into the presidential drama, or so we think.
With the exception of January 6th, when Congress votes on the electors we're talking about today.
Scratch that.
One certainly is still capable of a surprise ending from the CNN Center in Atlanta. Welcome once again to CNN's Morning News. I'm Bill Hemmer, the 18th of December once again.
And that it is, and welcome back once again from Tallahassee. And I am Daryn Kagan. It is another election year, but it is unlike any other election year. The Electoral College offers all the drama of a Harlem Globetrotters basketball game today.
Everyone knows who the winner will be, and no one notices the score. However, in this most unique of presidential elections, just a few members of the Electoral College could pull off the upset of the century. Where is Meadowlark Lemon?
Where is he? Maybe he could be an elector today. Well, that's one of the questions. Who is an elector? Okay, let's do some of the math here. 538